one of the big things I like to start with is just setting the stage. Sustainability is a very broad word. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. We'd love to hear what sustainability means to both yourself and Faherty.
Yeah, so I think I share the idea that brands need to be accountable for the products that they put out into the world, and also for all of the people that work within their supply chain and taking it even further, into the communities that we work in and sell in and that everybody lives in. So we really focus on, in every area of the business, how do we hold ourselves accountable? What is our impact in all of these different areas, and what can we do to reduce it? I think I've heard many people say that brands, they really can't be 100% sustainable. It's, there's always going to be some impacts, but I like that Faherty says that they're sustainably minded. And I think that is very true. And it means that basically we're looking for better choices, and we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to be responsible for the things that we put in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Along those lines, what are some of the actual initiatives that are happening on the ground with Faherty?
Yeah, there are a couple that I'll give you three as a start, just because they're kind of the main ones and the ones that I really like talking about and I think are most impactful. For a fashion brand, definitely supply chain. So where are we making our products, who's making it, preferred materials, using materials that are lower impact for the earth and for people. And then the last one I'll touch on is our native initiatives, which I'll get into a little bit more because it's my favorite and it's really great. So I'll start with preferred materials because I think that's the main one that most people ask us about. And if you go onto the site and you shop at Faherty, you'll notice that we use a lot of organic cotton, recycled polyester. We really try to progressively swap out conventional fibers for more responsible fibers. And it's not an easy task, and it doesn't happen overnight. We still, every season, are looking for opportunities to use new, different fibers that are less impactful. But like I said, we use a lot of organic cotton, I'd say, is our number one material, and then recycled polyester. And then we try to find new materials. One of the materials actually that I really liked when I first started was a fiber called Sorona. And it is a plant-based, made from partially from corn, stretch material. So it's a replacement for spandex. And I think, starting to get into fibers like that can really lower the impact of a garment that's, made to be comfortable and made to last for a really long time is really important. So the next topic I wanted to speak about was our responsible supply chain. And this really touches into the guide and talking about transparency. Mm-hmm. So we ask all of our suppliers, we don't ask actually, we require our suppliers to be transparent about the operations that they run and the processes that they use. So they sign a code of conduct that includes labor practices, health and safety, and also ethical business practices. They also follow a restricted substances list. So we want to ensure that our products do not contain any hazardous substances. And also to take it a little further, because I think people often think, well, it's really important for that final product not to have the chemical in them. But actually it's really bad for the chemical to even be in the factory, because there are workers working in that factory, they're breathing in or having to handle toxic substances. So we really are working with our supply chain to make sure that we are protecting our consumers, but also protecting the people that have to work in the global supply chain. And then I'll move on to the last initiative that it's kind of special to me, is our Native initiatives. So I actually have First Nations background. I'm a proud member of the Nisga'a Nation in British Columbia, Canada. And one of the reasons this was the cherry on the top for me with Faherty when I decided to move here, was this wonderful initiative of really respecting and not appropriating Native designs. The Native American culture is something that Faherty is respecting and really trying to understand more fully. And we actually have a partnership with Native and Indigenous designers to create all of the Native motifs, prints, any sort of imagery that you see is not just coming, it's not a designer who just said, oh, this is a cool print, let's put it on a t-shirt. These are actually designed by Native designers. And I think there's something really special about that, because these images have a deeper meaning. They often tell stories of families, tribes, culture, and ancestors. And so I think it's really important to have those stories intertwined into these types of products. I'd say those are the three that I'm really focused on right now. We have all sorts of other things that maybe we'll get to as we proceed.
For sure. No, that sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing. One thing I was curious about on this front is there a way to test the durability of these new fabrics that you are creating? Because one of the big parts that we look at is when we're partnering with a brand, are they producing high quality product? Is that product going to last decades, ideally, right? And can it be passed down in best case situations, generation after generation? So is there any testing or anything that you're doing to make sure that fabric is actually going to last, and we're steering clear of anything fast fashion related?
Yes, good question. I worked in testing for a long time at Ralph Lauren, so a lot of people hate testing. Testing is kind of a pain to have to do it, but it's so important. And like you said, if you are wanting to create a high quality garment that is not only durable in the material state, so yes, we want to have high quality materials, we want them to be organic, we want them to be strong and to last, but also, we take it another step further in the construction of the garment. We want to make sure that the construction of the garment is sound, and also the style and color of the garment. So I've actually spoken with some of our designers who say, they're designing things not just for one season. Not, the color and the design has to have some longevity. It has to be able to stay in your closet and be loved for a long time. And I think as a designer, that's taking it to another level than just designing for one season or designing for something that's a couple of years that you would have in your closet. So yes, but back to your question about testing, we definitely test our garments. We test the fabric for chemicals and for durability and performance.
Amazing. That's great to hear. Moving on to our, or kind of a piggybacking question, what's an example of how your commitment to sustainability has helped Faherty and fueled Faherty's growth as an organization?
I think that consumers are just way more aware. They know a lot more about sustainability. Younger people are very educated about it, and I think that Faherty just offered it in a way that was very easy to understand, so they were able to identify that it was a responsible brand. So our customers are moving along with us and learning more and more, and I think that is really helpful for the brand. I also think that when you are creating a team, the talent that you hire for your company, if they are sustainably minded, if they want to do the right thing, you're creating a great team that all has the same priorities and are all going in the same direction. And I think a lot of bigger corporate brands maybe don't consider that, but it's very important to have talent that is committed to the same commitment that you are committed to.
We've seen the same at Verbal+Visual. That's a question on all of our interviews is how aligned are you with this mission and what have you done in this space? So I think we've also seen the benefits of that. And it's nice to say you have the mission, but then act upon it, right? And we really emphasize that with all of the clients that we work with. So I think it comes to fruition in so many positive ways for both us and our clients.
Yeah.
What would be some of the initiatives that you have coming up that you're really excited about that maybe haven't been rolled out yet? Or in addition to that, what are some pie in the sky initiatives for the long-term future?
Yeah, I think the next exciting thing for us is circularity. So we believe that circularity starts at the design phase. So really, like I said before, we want to create garments that are high quality, durable, that are going to stay in your closet for many, many years, and that you want to, wear all the time or give to a friend and just pass along. But eventually garments, you can't wear them anymore. They're not wearable, or maybe you outgrew them, or there's some reason that you're not wearing that garment. So we are just in this sort of development phase, but we're going to roll out a take-back program. It's going to be called Second Wave, and it's basically us, again, taking accountability for all of the materials and products that we're putting out into the world, taking them back when they're not loved anymore, washing them, fixing them, doing whatever we have to do to extend their life, and then reselling them, putting them back into e-commerce market. If they're not, if they're not in a condition to be resold, then again we have another stream where we will be responsibly recycling those items. So really creating a closed loop on what we're putting out there in the world.
You're doing a couple really great things whenever you introduce an initiative like this. You are creating a new line of business for your business. You are reducing your manufacturing overhead, right? Because you don't need to produce as much, and you're keeping these products in in circularity, as you said. So I think it's a really beneficial thing for every brand out there to do and implement. We're really excited to see this rollout happen. I know it's a big initiative, and you have so many stores, and you're continuously growing the store count. So I know that's going to tie in really nicely between e-commerce and the physical footprint as well.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and I think, like you said, it opens up a whole new demographic for us, because there are people, maybe some of you even, who will only shop for used. I don't want to buy anything new. And so that really opens it up to other consumers and a different price point also. Exactly.
That was the other thing I failed to mention a moment ago, is that you have this consumer that's now maybe not in the income bracket that can afford a brand new item. They can buy this item used, and then they can, or pre-owned, and then they can, as they grow their income, as they grow in their career, they can afford, and they'll be lifetime customers as a result of that. What's some advice you would give to brands who are starting their sustainability journey? We'd love to hear.
I would say to measure your impact. I guess that's the first. There's two things that I think are really important. Measure your impact. So where is your where's the most impact of your company? If it's a clothing brand, it's probably going to be in the supply chain and the materials, like I mentioned earlier. And then also I think it's really important to find something that the company is passionate about and tying those two together. Because everybody can work on supply chain and materials, but if you also tie in something that you are really passionate about, is it oceans? Is it recycled material? Is it, for us it was the Native initiatives. What is that something special that you can tie into those sort of industry standards of sustainability? And then a mentor of mine, when I first started in sustainability, gave me the best advice and said, your job is to measure, monitor, and continuously improve. And I just love that, and I always think of that whenever I go into a new job where I'm working, I need to measure what I'm doing, I need to monitor it, and I need to continuously improve it. And I think if you start doing that, everything else will start to make sense.
I think that's great. There is no perfect model. We're all figuring out sustainability together, and we're all figuring out what a truly conscientious retail environment looks like. So continuously improving and working towards that perfect future that we'll never hit, but we'll get as close as we can, is all you can do, right? And if you're putting mind share towards it, which you all are obviously doing in spades, it's only going to improve, and sharing that information with everybody else so that we can all go on this journey together is vital.
Yes, I agree. I think, I really appreciate any brand that's sharing. There are a lot of the bigger brands have sustainability reports that I love to read, and even the smaller brands, I just love to hear what they're doing. So I think that's really important that everyone, including us, keep sharing what we're doing.
Are there any brands that you really admire on the sustainability front?
Yeah, I love Mara Hoffman and Eileen Fisher. And that really, to me, when I was starting in sustainability, those were the brands that were a bit ahead of the curve and doing things that, with the Take Back program, we're just doing it now, but Eileen Fisher was doing it, for many years. So I love that. But also, I love Everlane. I like what they're doing. And then even some of the bigger brands are doing great things like Tapestry and Madewell and those brands are all being very proactive. And I think they're all working towards being more sustainable too. So anyone that I can see the work actually being done, I'm a fan of.
Out of those brands, is there anyone that's has a particular initiative that you're drawn to, or is doing something specific that you say to yourself, I would love to do that with Faherty?
I guess the Take Back program, I know most of those do have the Take Back program. I know that Everlane goes a little further with their supply chain, and I think they're known for, listing all the suppliers that they work with and really going deep into the supply chain. And I think that's something to work towards, and I admire all of that work, because I know that it's very hard to dig down deep into the supply chain work. So I admire that they are doing that.
It's incredibly complex.
Yeah.
One other question that I was very curious about, especially in your past, you've worked for much larger organizations than Faherty. How do you get buy-in from leadership around sustainability? Because again, it's a broad term, and executives may not be that interested. They're focused on the bottom line. So it's great that you've landed at a place that really cares, but in places that maybe don't care as much, how do you get buy-in?
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be working somewhere where the CEO, all of the founders, the chief impact officer, and it really trickles down from there to every area of the business. If your CEO is talking about sustainability and how important it is, then everyone underneath them is going to know, is aware of how important that is. If you don't have that and your senior leadership is not into sustainability, it is so much more difficult to move any initiative, because you just don't have the leadership for everyone to follow. And maybe not everyone, if it's not everyone's priority to be sustainable, and for example, if it's the production team's priority to be on time and at the right price, and sustainability is not a priority, then it's going to be really difficult to implement those programs. So one of the things I learned along the way as I was working in some of the bigger companies is really to create relationships with every level of the business. And that, it sounds kind of weird, but if you have relationships with everyone and you're talking about things, you're working together, you're telling them about what you want to do, you're putting yourself in their position to try to understand why they don't want to do an initiative, and really, if you build those relationships with every level of the organization, then you can at least push things forward, even if you don't have the CEO. If you have everyone else and you don't have the CEO, but we're all working on it, the CEO will probably look and be like, oh, okay, everybody is into this. This is probably a priority. So I think the key is relationships.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm sure a lot of that boils down to communication in multiple fashions, right? Yes. You're building those relationships, but was there anything else that you were doing in past stops as it relates to kind of, these are very large organizations, so were you sending out emails? Were you hosting events? Like, what else were you doing within that world to kind of curry that favor?
Yeah, I think a really great thing to do is to create a green team. So a team that is sort of open to anyone who wants to join in the organization, and then really start that to build awareness in every area. And I've done that at some of my other roles. We're doing that at Faherty, and I think it also just makes it very inclusive. So whoever wants to work in sustainability, learn about sustainability in the brand, can join this team and be part of the change that we're making.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Before we move on to Q&A, just wanted to take a few minutes to go over our sustainability guide that we put together, the ultimate DTC guide to sustainability. We'll talk about a few things here coming up that are part of the guide, but I'll essentially use this as some additional questions, and they're all related to this guide. So first question is, do you work with any certification, or do you have any certifications within Faherty, or any organizations that provide certifications that you would like to share? For instance, in the guide, Certified B Corp is a very common one that I'm sure most folks have heard of, as well as climate neutral certification. Climate neutral offsets carbon emissions for any business. So we ourselves are climate neutral certified, for example. So I'd love to hear if there's any certifications that are top of mind for you.
Yeah, I mean, I love both of those certifications, and I think that there has been discussion about both of them. I think that we're still in that research phase. We're trying to figure out which one is the best, and there are all sorts of other certifications that we can work towards. Right now, we are part of Textile Exchange, and so we work with them. It's not really a certification, but it's a membership within a large industry organization, and that is something that really keeps us on track with materials and what we should be doing in the industry. And we're also part of Blue Sign, which is another organization that's really promoting the restriction of hazardous chemicals in our supply chain. Sure. So I think we'll build to that. It's definitely in the future, and we're having conversations about it. It's the next level.
Thank you for sharing. On the size and fit front, we spend a lot of time on that. So there are features like saving your fit and saving your sizes that you can implement that will help a customer ensure that they're buying the right size no matter what, because they're not going to necessarily remember that they were a small or a large or whatever the size is. So how can we implement that into the customer experience is something that we spend a lot of time and energy on. So thank you for sharing that as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love if it saves my information so that you don't have to work it out again with the size chart.
Exactly. I remember Bonobos had done that first way back in 2008 or something, and I loved the feature. I couldn't get enough of it. So I shopped there a lot for a few years, but just because of that feature alone, I was like, I know this is going to fit. I know it's going to be an easy customer experience. There are a handful of other aspects to this guide that we won't have time for today, and we want to get to Q&A. But please do check it out. We will send out the link to everybody after, but it is verbal+visual.com/sustainability. And like I said, we will send it out. We'd like to reserve some time for Q&A, but first I do want to thank Lisa for being here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Happy to take any questions, and if anybody wants a mic, we can hand that out as well. I think we have one. Neil?
Hi, my name is Neil. I'm the CEO and founder of 1.5 Friend Advantages, and we actually work with Textile Exchange. We work with Claire to build digitization of traceability in supply chain. I just have a curious question. You mentioned measurement, and you have a chief impact officer. Like, what exactly are you measuring right now when it comes to sustainability, and what do you hope to measure in the future?
Yes, so we are measuring our material impact. So what fibers are we using the most? and then down from the top to the bottom, and how can we start to proactively switch those out to more responsible choices. And Textile Exchange is a great organization to do that with, because they have a sort of an industry standard and structure to be able to do that, because that is it's a very daunting task to figure out where all of your materials are and how much of each you're actually consuming in the industry. So I would say that that's the number one thing. We also keep track of all of our suppliers and sort of measure their progress in sustainability. So what is this supplier doing with water, and how are they improving? What do they want to do? Are they working towards being a Blue Sign certified partner? So all of those things can be measured, not easily, but I'd say there are common industry tools to be able to do that.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Miranda Coulter. I work actually for Recurate, and we have a tech integration that does some e-commerce with brands. So very on topic today. But I was curious if you could touch on your approach to marketing and messaging some of your initiatives around sustainability to your customers. Like when you're launching something like a take back program or some of your data programs, how do you bring them into the messaging and educate them on what you're doing so they can feel like part of the experience and closer to your brand?
That's a great question, and I am not in marketing, but I can say, for me, the marketing part is so important to connect with everybody else, especially right now with all the scrutiny of sustainability. There are a lot of organizations and brands that are being, called out on things that they don't do. So for me, when I'm working with the marketing team, for me it's all about verification and making sure that what we say is what we're doing. And I want to have all of those certifications in my hand, and I want to have proof of whatever we're saying. So I might not be the answer from the marketing side. That I think the marketing team does a great job of creating a story around the sustainability, though, and that is very key. And I think another thing that they do very well is that it's very digestible, so everyone understands it. Whereas some brands, I feel like with sustainability, it's very high level. It maybe isn't clear exactly what they're doing. So I think that's another key thing in marketing, to be able to communicate effectively to your customer what you're doing, and then make sure that it's verified.
One thing that we do as well is we work with our clients to actually user test their site. And so we'll test and see, are they understanding this? And we'll do video tests. So they'll be doing a screen share, and they'll be walking through the site, and we'll ask them, do you understand the mission? Do you understand what this brand is actually doing on the sustainability front? Do you understand the re-commerce experience and what that actually is on the ground, tangibly? So those types of tests really help from a qualitative perspective, understanding, is this brand executing on this from a marketing perspective effectively? And then from there, we take that information, we refine the experience further and further. Great question. Any other question? Oh, bunch all at once. All three of you at once. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Vadim. I'm CEO of virtual fit company 3D. We are integrated with Shopify, by the way. Are you using any third-party fit and size solutions, or you're trying to solve the problem of returns in-house?
I don't think we are, but I can't answer that for sure. Sorry.
On the site experience?
Yeah, I mean, to help people to understand the recommended size according to their fit preference.
Yeah, I believe do you remember, is it TrueFit that we're using?
Yeah, TrueFit is the most obvious, but it's a bit legacy.
Yeah, it's a bit what, sorry?
Like legacy, I mean, it's not very kind of up-to-date approach.
Yeah, that's the one that we're using, but then we also have been using models on the site. So we use multiple models wearing the clothing, and that has proven very effective. And going back to the point a moment ago, using those and utilizing those user tests to understand, are they getting the right size? So I think it's making sure that you're showing the variations, showing as illustrations, and then running the tests because every brand is going to be a little bit different. Your sizing may be different from one cut to another cut. So by running those tests, you're going to help ensure that the sizing is accurate, as well as getting customer surveys involved too to see, did you get the right fit. Lastly, I think utilizing a business intelligence tool to see how returns are going and how many people bought 2 sizes of the same one and then returned, right? And getting that data alone and then talking to those customers will help refine your fit. So it's a multi-pronged approach to it. There's no one perfect way to do it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey. Okay. So, is it one question per person, or
You can ask as many questions.
Okay. No.
We've got some time.
But then there's already one question.
I do one and rotate. No. I'm just
I
kidding.
have a few questions, and the other ones kind of lead into each other. So the first one is, what part of the fashion industry do you believe is the hardest to, I guess, convert into like the sustainable genre?
I think Lisa, you might be best equipped to answer this one.
I think, in my experience, it's deep into the supply chain. So when you start getting into dyeing fibers and the processes down into like tier 3 manufacturing that are they're kind of the hardest to get to and to really be transparent. I feel like now a lot of the manufacturers are very open to being transparent because everybody's asking them to be. But the deeper you go into the material supply chain, the harder it is to have transparency and to really see, how much water and chemicals they're using.
Right. And so the other question is, so this question comes from, a little background from it is, I was watching this documentary on doTERRA, and doTERRA basically, they have on their website, and just basically them as a company, they say how they've impacted other parts of the world, they've built all these different things, and Vice actually did a documentary following up on their supplier, and come to find out it wasn't what they said it was. And so they were talking to the people over there in that town that was supposed to have had a school built by doTERRA. They didn't even have it. So I know you were saying earlier about the transparency. How do you guys know that, basically everything that is being displayed to you is like the honest truth? Because the one problem that they were having over there is that they were getting these emails, they were getting so much information saying how everything was great, pretty much putting on front. And the reality of it was there was one guy who was going around pretty much being a bully and was not giving the resources that were supposed to be given to the people in a fair exchange. So how do you guys basically know that, the transparency that's being given to you is real? Like, have you guys gone to these facilities and actually seen the work and talked to, people who are actually working on these projects?
Yeah, it's really hard. And every brand, I think that is an area that is really hard to confirm. I know that, I've only been with the brand for 3 months, but so I haven't traveled to our facilities yet, but I hope to. And in my past roles, yes, we would travel to them and we would do, not just a social audit, which is an audit of the facility, the workers, the hourly, wage that they're getting, and then walk through the entire facility. But we would take it even further for some of those suppliers that I was mentioning, the water and chemical, and do a water audit where we would go in and really check the whole grounds to see if there were any, chemical leaks or how they were using water, if they were measuring it. So I think that it's a combination of things. I think you choose your suppliers very carefully, and you make sure that they have certifications and just a general transparency. They're telling you where their facilities are and what they're doing. You have to do audits because, and that means hiring a third party company, especially if you're a global brand, to go in, because you can't go and visit every single place. So you do a social and environmental audit where someone goes in and looks at everything. But I mean, some people will argue, well, that's just a snapshot in time, and the next day things could be different. So I think it's a combination of things, and then going to visit the factory and really
And not telling them you're coming.
and not yes, and not, sometimes
Surprise
not
audits.
coming. Or sometimes I know that some brands will send in a design team with the knowledge of an audit. So when your design team goes in and they're just being shown the showroom, but then they want to walk the production floor, they want to go see where the printing's done, and if they have the knowledge to flag something that maybe doesn't look right, then you have an extra set of eyes that is not an official third party, but maybe just a more educated team that's going into the facilities.
Yeah.
So I think like a combination of all of those things you have to have.
I appreciate that, because that gives like a whole other perspective on just like the overall issue now, because as the Western versus Eastern side of the world, like you see things and then it's like a lot of the times you don't really know until like you've actually been there, but also bringing awareness to everyone and not just certain people. I think that's a really good way to solve that issue.
Yeah.
Oh, and the last question was, how far is the main supplier from like all the retail stores?
We have a global supply chain, so we have many different areas. We produce some things in China, we produce in the United States, we have some European suppliers. So our like many other brands, our supply chain is quite diverse. So they're obviously they're shipping to locations that are close to our stores.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the
Good
question.
questions.
Yeah.
This might be more for you, but you guys are both welcome to answer. So I am a freelance consultant for e-commerce brands, and I have my own e-commerce brand, which will be confidential. But I was really, I found what you said about bonobos and like the features really insightful, and I was just wondering, either in fashion or other industries, in food, like what other features do you see in e-commerce that, whether it's like saving your size or maybe the layout or just other features that like maybe I need to dive deeper into this guide that you find are like best practices for sustainably within a website?
Yeah, the guide has a ton.
Yeah.
I'll give you one or two that I can think of. I'm trying to think of the best one that I can provide. I think transparency and communication is really, really important. So on the product detail page in particular, there's a lot of brands that say they're sustainability focused, and they really don't tell the story effectively on that product detail page of what this brand is, what this product is, why it's sustainable, what the manufacturing process was, et cetera, et cetera. That is where I would go, because that is the key page on a site. When we're designing a site, we design from the PDP is the product detail page. We design from the product detail page out, right? Most people traditionally would think of the home page as the most important. We think of the product detail page as the most important. So I think telling that story, it's not a feature per se, but it is the most important page to get right, to run tests on. So I think if you're doing that alone, that's a big step. And then I would say also supporting that with your sustainability page and your blog content. So it should really not only feel, but it needs to be authentic. It needs to feel like an intertwined and thoughtful approach to how sustainability, how your responsible best practices tie into the product and tie into your mission. If you can do that well, then you are going to connect with the customer. And we know that statistically, you have 3 seconds to connect with the customer before they leave. So how do you tell a story in 3 seconds? That's the big question to solve for any e-commerce brand. And it's something that we spend a lot of time on. I was talking about testing before. We test for that quite a bit. There are many more listed out best practices, and I'm also happy to spend some more time with you after if you'd like to discuss further.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
I'm Savannah. I work with brands on giving initiatives, and then I also have a sustainability blog in my spare time, 5 to 9. But I was curious, from both of your perspectives, do you have any charitable initiatives for your brands, and how do you feel like that fits into the story of sustainability that you guys are telling?
Do we have any what initiatives, sorry?
Charitable
Charitable,
initiatives.
got it. Would you like to share?
Like what, for example?
Like donations to a nonprofit on a quarterly basis, or
Oh,
if you
right.
donate a portion of sales.
Okay, yes, so we are part of 1% for the Planet, which is kind of, I think, ties in with our sort of aesthetic of this sort of beach, holiday, kind of easy, comfortable clothes that you want to wear everywhere, every day. So we do, 1% of all of our swim goes to 1% for the Planet, for ocean conservation. And then I can't think of anything else right now.
That's okay. I could share one. We are climate neutral certified, which means we pay every year to have all of our carbon emissions as a company offset. And that is offset with green energy initiatives. So any green energy you can think of, we essentially pay to have that done every year. So that's where we spend most of our charity time. We also have, everybody in the company is entitled to spend 2 days a year working on any charity that they want to. So we empower everybody to work with different charities that they so choose, and they can bring those to the equation and kind of join forces if they would like as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Monica Knudsen, and I'm a jeweler, and I've been doing this. I have a company with the same name. It's e-commerce, and I basically repurpose lace into jewelry, so it's lace inside. And I'm striving to be sustainable, but all my suppliers are local. So I wondered, I know you mentioned that your suppliers are global. Are you working on getting more local suppliers, or what is the plan?
I would say that we're, maybe not local as in New York.
Yeah.
But definitely we want to move some of our production more into North and South America. But are you talking specifically like about the
US.
Midtown?
I'm thinking, because you mentioned
country?
China and other places,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there is a plan to have them.
I don't know if that is to be specific about. I know we would like to be more in North and South America because it's just shipping everything from overseas is difficult and very impactful. So yes, I know that we're looking more into some suppliers that are on the continent.
I'm making art out of cardboard boxes, newspapers, and magazines. So I know I'm upcycled, I know I'm recycled, I'm probably circular. I'm having trouble figuring out if I'm sustainable.
Oh, I think based on what you just said,
It sounds like it.
It sounds pretty good, and if
Because
that's
the
your definition.
newspapers and the magazines and the boxes are constantly coming. So that's sustainable, right?
Yeah, I think that if you are conducting in a circular way where you're not, your impact is very low and you're actually using up things that would have impact.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so.
Thank you.
This is what I do too.
Uh-huh.
I've never met another artist. This is exciting.
I see you have some leather goods in your line, and I have a completely leather handbag brand. How do you reconcile the current narrative of vegan leather, plastic, with the additional narrative that the cows are creating the biggest problem, back to you focusing on environmental and carrying leather products?
It's something that we're discussing right now as we build our strategy, how we want to work going forward with accessories and leather.
Okay. If you had to choose yourself, what would you do?
Well,
This isn't what we're going to do.
yeah, for
Because
me
I respect you
personally,
a lot.
yeah, for me personally, coming from LVMH, which is a huge luxury company that has many brands that work with leather, and they're not willing to give up leather. They want to work in leather. And so the answer was to do leather in the most responsible way. So to have a leather working group certified, which reduces the water chemical impact. And then even going further, I've noticed some brands are doing regenerative leather. So making sure that right down to like animal welfare, that everything is responsibly done. So I think, you know, if you're going to do leather, like these big companies, they don't want to give up the leather, that you have to do it responsibly, and you have to really do a lot of research and do it that way. Personally, I find it hard. There's a lot of technology about leather right now. There's mushroom and all sorts of different things, and I think that it's going to get better and better, and it will become more used, and I hope so. But right now, I think that there still is an advantage to using leather because it's so durable, and it can last for a long time. It makes something, you know, the lifespan of a garment or shoes just longer. So in that way, it could be considered sustainable. But I know a lot of people disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's a good answer. That's the second question, was over the life cycle.
Right.
Would you prefer a brand only use plastics and call it vegan life? Or those are the only options now?
Yeah, I don't like the plastics.
But that's it, right? Or
That's where
would you
I get a
prefer
little.
no plastic and all leather
Yeah.
over the life cycle? And how do you explain that, right?
Yeah, it's hard. It's a tough one. I don't know where we're gonna go with it yet, but it's something we've definitely discussed and working on.
Do you guys feel sell a vegan or do you sell the?
We haven't said that we're vegan.
Okay.
I see 4 questions. We're going to make these the last 4 questions, so we'll go around.
Just to be additive to that conversation,
Oh,
I think what you're looking for, and also with the circularity side, is the life cycle analysis, the actual measure. We're like a remote agency. We provide fractional teams to climate initiatives. We work with Fortune 500 and mid-tier consumer product companies. 2 things on the leather side is, one, there's leather credits or renewable, regenerative incentives that are getting built by even Textile Exchange right now with fashion brands, that you can purchase like $10 for credits that then supplement farmers at the front level. So there's market mechanisms that are being built. But everyone, I think, one thing I'm trying to help is demystify the idea of life cycle analysis. That you can actually measure this like you would do a financial model. You would actually measure the manufacturing, transportation, use, and end of life of anything. So, for example, if I'm comparing your leather product to like even renewable plastics, you'd actually run that and pull the data, like basically data modules on the different components through the life cycle, and you can come out with a fun figure, not only on your GHG emissions, but also carcinogenics and all these other elements. So we've been trying to sort of productize that service and make it much more accessible, because the softwares that do that are extremely archaic. And how do you actually integrate that into like a Shopify experience? We're actually working with the 2 technology companies that are trying to do that for Visa and MasterCard right now, where if you actually make a transaction, you can tell the footprint. But you can imagine that it's complex because supply chains are complex, so where do you draw those boundaries? So I think that's something that is very doable from a material standpoint. The material is known. There's like databases of tens of thousands of these things that if you know how to do some kind of financial modeling, you can actually put it into tools that exist online.
I got 3 answers in life on this one. It's a hard one, guys. Let's just face it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I believe you had a question.
Yes. Thank you both for being here. My name is Stephanie. I'm the co-founder of Neri Resort. We use dead stock, linen and cotton, and we work with at-risk and/or survivors of exploitation in Cambodia, which is where my family's from. And we're emerging. We're only 2 years old, and something that I've grappled with is pricing of our clothes. With the cost of production is lower in Cambodia, the shipping's more expensive. But what I've found in the market is pieces that really they're marked at, I don't know, maybe 7 times to what the actual costs are, plus all the other overhead costs. And so with creating ethical, sustainable pieces, it's I guess I've been torn about, how do we price our goods where it makes sense. I don't know if where it makes sense, but also is that transparent piece. Does that question make sense?
It makes sense to me.
Okay.
Would you like to answer? I can answer first. I think you should price it so that you can run your company and grow your company and be very. This is my take, and you should share it transparently. This is what goes into our work, and this product is going to last a really long time. So showcasing the value of the products that you're creating will justify the price point, because it sounds like you're worried that the price point is too high. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I think making that price point high and getting people to understand what actually goes into garment production is really important. And that's hopefully going to get us away from fast fashion. And we were talking about circular economies before and re-commerce, right? When somebody buys one of your products in a year, 2 years, 3 years, when they're done with that product, if you have an outlet for them to sell back and then resell it at a lower cost, that's when you can start to say, okay, now we're creating a circular economy that is accurate to what it truly costs to produce this product, and it is going to last 10, 20, 30 years, and it's benefiting these people in this way. That's a very compelling story. And that's exactly where we want to go to get away from fast fashion. Fast fashion is all about hiding it and getting it as cheap as possible, and you're doing the opposite of that, and that is fantastic. And you should share the story.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think building the story and explaining why it's more expensive, maybe than a fast fashion brand is key, and it's what customers are looking for. And I think that customers are more and more willing to pay a bit more for a brand that they really believe in or that they trust. So I think I agree with you that you've got to do what you have to do to have your business and just really work on telling the story and being honest about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Lisa, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all so much for coming.